classical instrumentalist does not get out of their chair very often.
When you do a regular opera that's already been written, you go in with the music learned and memorized and in your body, and then you stage on top of that. This,
It's not your normal chamber piece.
The way I describe it, we're creating a collaborative opera.
A music performance piece, I guess I would call it.
Or a piece of musical theater, say.
I think really music theater is the closest that we come.
That was great!
you know, a Gesamtkunstwerk, the all of the arts involved.
Drömseminarium is an international collaborative project. We have 26 artists collaborating on creating a new piece of music theater / chamber opera based on the poetry of Tomas Tranströmer with music by American composer Ellen Lindquist.
It's all of the players that are actors. It's not just the singers with accompaniment by the instrumentalists.
We're taking 10 different poems that have no connection other than that they're written by the same person.
At a certain point, we decided that we really wanted to incorporate the ideas of all of these musicians and work with improvisation.
Its uniqueness is that collaborative process that's very specific to this project.
I don't think that there's many groups that are doing what we're doing.
It's like a new world to do it this kind of way.
I'm excited to see what happens because it's a group of incredibly talented people.
I am Laura Barger, I play the piano.
My name is Malin Trast. I'm playing the flute and the alto flute.
My name is Michael McCurdy and I play percussion.
I'm Nicolas Tulliez, I play the harp.
My name is Krista Van Alstein and I play the clarinet.
I'm Felix Pastor and I play the bass.
My name is Aaron Packard and I play the violin.
My name is Robert Ek and I play the clarinet.
My name is Laura Carney and I play the oboe and the English horn.
My name is Ben Jimin Lance and I play the trombone.
My name is Angela Wilmot and I play the horn.
My name is Kathleen Flynn. I am the soprano vocalist.
My name is Henny Kjellberg and I am the set designer.
My name is Tim Long and I'm the music director of this project.
I'm Pat Diamond. I'm the director on the project.
I'm Michael Douglas Jones. I am a singer. I am also the executive artistic director of Companion Star.
All of these musicians are so good. I mean, they really are. And it's very special that they're actually not only willing to come here and to do these workshops, you know, just for, we say, amor al arte, for the love of art, but also that they can manage to, you know, get down to level and say, okay, I have my professional career, but I'm going to act like a squawking bird because that's the best thing for the project.
I mean, as a classically trained musician, I don't have any real experience in theater.
It's not like the singers who are always on stage doing opera and used to moving around. For me, even just walking on stage, I'm totally self-conscious.
You know, here's a chair, and this chair can be anything in the world.
And that was really hard for me because it's just a chair, you know. And I get it, I get what the exercise was trying to do, but I found it really difficult to have it be something that it wasn't. But I think I've grown. I'm able to now pull a chair across the floor as if it were a lawnmower or a wheelbarrow or something. Yeah.
That's probably the hardest part. It's, you know, 2 weeks before coming to the sessions, that's all you think about. is what are they going to make me do this time, you know?
You feel instantly connected and committed because you are part of what is happening. You've helped create what's happening. So you feel more invested. You feel like in this whole huge thing that a little part of it has come from your own voice or your ideas. And that's really different than simply learning a whole concert of music written by someone else.
There's a certain magic that comes when everything finally settles into place, when there are so many voices involved, but somehow we've found a space in which they can all coexist. And that doesn't happen every day. That's not something that happens when you're working by yourself.
This is June 2009.
There's roughly an hour of music that's written.
There are many stages happening at the same time.
We are now having our 6th creative workshop in Västerås this summer. There are now 27 people staying in this tiny little compound, Björnagården.
So we've been working on Allegro this week, which is at the beginning stages. We've been working with Minina and Lamento, which are in the middle phase. We've been working with Madrigal and Lingre, which are more at an end phase and are wanting more design work after this. And so there's just a lot going on.
In the year 2000, I met Ellen Lindquist at Stony Brook University.
Within 5 minutes of our meeting, he asked me if I would set him a song cycle of poems by Tomas Tranströmer for bass and piano.
And in 2005, I founded Companion Star. One conversation led to the next, and we contacted some other artists that we knew. In 2006, January, we did our first development workshop for Drömseminarium. In 2007, at the Gateway Theater in Bellport, New York, we had our first full development workshop and 2 work-in-progress performances. And it first started out as 7 instruments and 2 singers. And today it is now 13 instruments and 2 singers.
So at this point, I have plenty of material to finish the piece.
But we have to be patient, and we have to allow each step in the development of the process and our ideas of what it means to be an artist in this process to emerge on its own. We know when it's right to go to the next step.
The connective tissue for this whole project is the poetry.
For us, it's a question of doing justice to the poetry.
Well, Tomas Tranströmer is very well known in Sweden, and I think the first book I read with his poetry was For the Living and the Dead, and I was 13 years old. So his poetry has been in my life for quite a few years now.
He's here from Västerås, so everybody knows him, and it's like quite. He has been so much in the air. Do you say so?
Poetry speaks to everybody differently, and depending on where you come from, you read it differently. And in terms of coming from even not just where you, like geographically you are, but what you've experienced will have you read a poem very differently.
You get in touch with the words so much better when you can share the other people around and their thoughts about it, so you can like get new approach to it.
Maybe it's also that Tomas's poetry, there's so much richness in it, and it feels somehow as though the richness that's contributed by all of the points of view in this group, both in terms of language, perception of language in the poetry, and also musical reflection. It feels like all of that richness is actually essential to make this piece what it will be.
I find it really interesting that Ellen is putting in multiple languages, not just doing Tranströmer's poetry in Swedish, which would be, I guess, typical, and not just doing it in English. And then even in this workshop, she's starting to work with people putting in other languages like French or Dutch or Spanish.
I was really honored last year when Tomas spoke about this piece really as another translation of his poetry. And I think that's maybe the best way to say it. It's not just a setting of the poetry. It's really more of an interpretation or a translation. I think he was completely right about that. And I'm really happy that he feels that way.
The creative process for Dream Seminar is based on the philosophy of allowing each artist to participate in helping create something on stage.
It's not like someone has just gone away and created this one thing and brought it to everyone and it's all done. You're really kind of cultivating it or nurturing it until it reaches a certain state.
So we take a poem of Tranströmer's, we read it together, we discuss the images that are evoked from the words of the poem, and we try to communicate to each other what that is through our medium.
You know, from the very beginning of improvisation, you have to really be, first of all, absolutely inside the poem, inside the text.
I see myself as inspiring the composer to write something.
And my fingerprints are all over it because I'm the one that's choosing and ordering and figuring out transitions and broadening and developing ideas, but the actual ideas are coming from this entire group.
Much like a choreographer might develop a dance, Ellen is taking elements from what we as the artists have created and she weaves it all together.
And at the next workshop, it'll generally be in a medium point of development.
I can give everyone a score and they learn it together as an ensemble, and it's so wonderful in those last phases to be able to just make tiny adjustments as they're playing.
It's fantastic working with living composers because you can get far beyond what's on the printed page. When you get down to it, the whole notation system of music is really primitive. The whole notation system is generally mathematical, and yet sound and music and your reaction to music and rubato is never mathematical. So the math has to serve as a structure for something that's much larger than what's on the printed page.
I have worked with individual musicians and said, okay, if you see this idea that I'm trying to get out, how would you express that on your instrument in ways that I don't know?
It's sort of growing out of a fog, and we are rehearsing what is there, we are learning what is on the paper, but additionally adding in elements that are missing.
And then in the third stage, where it's more or less set, we can start to get more of an idea of its stage life through that and really clarify that and develop that even more.
It's not always an easy process. It can be difficult and frustrating and slow sometimes. But in the best of times, it's such a rich process and people feel very connected to it.
With this group, it's vitally important that they move together at once, not one person slightly behind. So we rehearse to get groups together so they know what group they're playing with at any given time. And so in Lengua Inn, there's this one point that we rehearse every single day because it's really, really difficult. It's a 5/8 bar, and the woodwinds and the brass play together. They're separated from everybody else. So we're coming out of a 6/4 measure, and then there's percussion on beat 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it goes into 5/8. So again, this is one of those places where we have to rehearse it to where they're together, and then you have to tell this group of people he's in charge. So no matter what you do, you have to go with him at this point, and then 2 measures later, Laura Barger takes over. And then 2 measures later, Angie Wilmot takes over. So again, it's sort of like this, what's that game that Pat was playing? Flock of Birds. Music's just like that, really. One person takes the lead, you turn around and somebody else is taking the lead and everybody has to go with that.
I know that for me it's really interesting to try to move with a group of people, so you're starting to sense them from, other than just like I'm sitting and I'm looking at you and we're going to play together. It's like I'm standing next to you and we're going to move together, and you feel them and become aware of them in different ways. and aware of being part of the whole in terms of a movement. And I think that that's one of the things that they're kind of going for, getting us to really get a sense of knowing each other so well that we can move and make music together without having to have a conductor, and with being across the stage from one another.
The moths settle on the window pane, small pale telegrams.
Det går veckor och det blir långsamt natt. Malarna sätter sig på rutan. Små bleka telegram från världen.
Lamento, which is in a very early stage, and it only has sketches to it, but I think it's fascinating. I mean, what they've done in the last 2 weeks with Lamento from this bear sketch is so enchanting that could become a solid piece just from this workshop alone. So I think it looks good from my perspective. I don't know what will happen, but I think it's in great shape to be a whole next year.
What you see now in Lamento stemmed from this one improvisation that we did. We talked about the poem, and I really related to the voice, the he in the poem, and Laura related to a feeling that maybe that person, that character was having, and so that was what it stemmed from. That was kind of it. From there, we just built it. The start where I'm talking through my clarinet and walking, backwards alone, and actually the whole opening of Lamento is the first the original first 2 minutes or something like that from the improv. It hasn't been changed at all. So the only thing that's been changed is some of the physical gestures, which is great.
We're planning to work in January 2011 for 1 month in New York, again at the Gateway Theatre. And that will be our last work period. So I will have really 99% of the music done at that point. But that will be a time also for Pat to really put the finishing touches on the staging and work out the full shape of the piece. So our hope for late in the spring of 2011 is to work again in Sweden and have the premiere here in Västerås, and then secondarily in Stockholm during the course of probably 2 weeks.
There's no instruction manual on how to put something like this together, so it's very difficult and it's very time consuming, and we make a lot of mistakes, and you learn from those mistakes and you kind of move ahead, and I think the amount of time that it takes to develop something like this, it's why this is something that is so unique.
Well, for me, it's just that it's really interesting to have the process be as important as the product, and that the process is really, in the end, shown in the product, and that it's a really collaborative between the musician and the composer, because so often we play music from composers that are dead, and the link there is really absolutely broken. Or even if you play composers that are alive, you don't meet them or you don't have any interaction with them. But here, there's a really genuine link between the performers, their personalities, and the composer and her personality, and creating something that's probably different than any of them would have on their own. I think it's valuable in itself.
I think it's really important work that should be happening in the world right now.
This idea that a piece is not just a piece, but it's the whole world that it carries around it.
I think that's sort of the future of the project. Yes, Dream Seminar is extremely important, but it's also the idea behind it.
So the more we do this, trying to understand together what it means, the more interesting it's going to get.
The wood will be set. We'll set this